There was a day when the greatest land empire in human history began to fade into dust. The Mongol Empire, built by conquest, speed, and fear, seemed unstoppable, yet even the mightiest empires crumble. The Mongol Empire began with a leader unlike any the world had ever seen, Genghis Khan, born Temujin. He endured a brutal childhood on the harsh Mongolian steppe. He survived starvation, betrayal, and slavery, forging an iron will that would one day unite a fractured people. Through shrewd alliances and ruthless warfare, he brought the warring Mongol tribes under a single banner. At a grand assembly in 1206, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. He united the tribes, defeated his rivals, and carved out a vast empire from the Pacific to Eastern Europe. His warriors moved like storms across the plains, their horse archers a terrifyingly effective force. His laws, known as the Yasa, were harsh but effective, bringing order and discipline to a once chaotic society. His strategy was unmatched, combining mobility, intelligence gathering, and psychological warfare to overcome enemies far larger and more established. The foundation of the world's largest contiguous empire was laid not with stone, but with steel, loyalty, and the singular vision of one man. Under Genghis and his successors, the Mongols conquered kingdoms faster than history could record them. Their expansion was a whirlwind of destruction and assimilation. The invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire was a showcase of their brutal efficiency, leaving cities like Samarkand and Bukhara in ruins. China, with its ancient dynasties and immense armies, fell piece by piece. The Song dynasty in the south would eventually succumb to his grandson, Kublai Khan. Persia, the cradle of great civilizations, was overrun. The Abbasid Caliphate, the spiritual heart of the Islamic world, saw its capital, Baghdad, sacked in 1258, a blow from which the region would take centuries to recover. Kievan Rus was subjugated, its princes forced to pay tribute to the Golden Horde. The Mongol armies rode as far as the gates of Vienna, striking fear into the heart of Europe. No empire expanded so quickly, driven by a relentless military machine, and none would fracture so violently. In 1227, Genghis Khan died. The exact circumstances of his death and the location of his burial remain one of history's greatest mysteries, a secret taken to the grave to protect his final resting place. With him died the singular unifying force of the empire. His sons inherited a world carved by conquest, a domain stretching across continents. They inherited his armies, his laws, and his title, but they did not inherit his vision. The great Khan had planned for succession, dividing the empire among his 4 sons. But the bonds of brotherhood were not as strong as the lure of power. The seeds of division were sown the moment the founder's heart stopped beating. The empire, which had seemed immortal, now faced its greatest challenge, itself. The empire fractured into 4 major khanates, united in name, but divided in ambition. On an ancient map, the vast territory split. In the northwest, the Golden Horde ruled over the Russian steppes. In Central Asia, the Chagatai Khanate controlled the traditional Mongol heartlands and the vital Silk Road routes. In Persia and the Middle East, the Ilkhanate was established. And in the east, the wealthiest and most prestigious territory, the Yuan Dynasty was founded in China by Kublai Khan. Each Khan claimed legitimacy as a descendant of the great Genghis, but with distance and time their interests diverged. Brothers became rivals, cousins became enemies. The dream of a single, unified Mongol world began to fade, replaced by the reality of 4 competing successor states, each vying for supremacy. Civil war became the empire's new enemy. The once unbreakable Mongol Brotherhood shattered into a series of bitter and destructive conflicts. Instead of conquering new lands, the Mongols turned their weapons on each other. The Toluid Civil War fought between Kublai Khan and his younger brother Arik. Baku was a critical turning point. It drained resources, split loyalties, and permanently damaged the central authority of the Great Khan. Later, wars erupted between the Golden Horde and the Ilkhanate over territory in the Caucasus. The Chagatai Khanate frequently clashed with its neighbors. Alliances were made and broken. The unity that once terrified the world, the single-minded purpose that had brought empires to their knees, was gone. The Mongol war machine, once directed outward, now turned inward, beginning the slow, painful process of self-destruction. The Yuan Dynasty, the empire's richest jewel, collapsed under rebellion, corruption, and famine. While Kublai Khan had successfully conquered all of China, his successors lacked his administrative skill and political acumen. The Mongol rulers became increasingly disconnected from their Chinese subjects. A series of natural disasters, including floods and droughts, led to widespread famine, which the government was ill-equipped to handle. This, combined with spiraling inflation and ethnic tensions, ignited massive rebellions. A peasant rebel leader, Zhu Yuanzhang, rose to prominence, uniting the discontented factions. In 1368, his forces captured the Yuan capital, Dadu, today's Beijing. The last Yuan emperor fled north, back to the Mongolian steppe. The Ming dynasty rose, and the Mongols were driven out of China. The heart of the empire was lost. In the west, the other khanates followed a similar path to dissolution. The Ilkhanate, in Persia, weakened by the devastating Black Death and internal power struggles, collapsed after its last effective ruler died without an heir in 1335. It splintered into several smaller competing states. The mighty Golden Horde, which had dominated Eastern Europe for over 2 centuries, also began to fracture. It faced pressure from a rising Moscow and was torn apart by internal rivalries, eventually breaking into smaller, weaker Tatar khanates. The Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia shattered under the strain of internal conflict between its nomadic and settled populations. It was eventually conquered and absorbed by the rising power of Timur, also known as Tamerlane, the Turco-Mongol conqueror who claimed Genghis' heritage but built an empire of his own. One by one, the khanates that had once formed a global superpower collapsed. There was no single battle, no final stand that marked the end. The Mongol Empire did not fall in one day. It faded into history, dissolved like salt in water, a slow, inevitable process driven by civil war, succession crises, cultural assimilation, and rebellion from the peoples it had conquered. The Mongol rulers in Persia and China adopted local religions and customs, losing their distinct identity. The legendary warriors of the steppe were defeated not by a greater army, but by the sheer scale of their own creation and the human tendency toward division. The banners that had flown over Baghdad, Beijing, and Moscow were lowered, and the thundering of hooves that had shaken the world fell silent. Though the empire vanished, its legacy shaped the world in profound and lasting ways. By uniting Eurasia under a single rule, the Mongols created an era of unprecedented peace and stability, known as the Pax Mongolica. Trade flourished along the re-established Silk Road. Goods, technologies, and ideas flowed between East and West as never before. Gunpowder, the compass, and printing made their way to Europe, while Western science and culture traveled east. Cultures mixed, creating new artistic and architectural styles. Cities rose along the Silk Road, becoming vibrant centers of commerce and learning. The Mongols left behind a world connected by roads, ideas, and ambition. Their brutal conquests are a dark chapter in history, but their role in creating a more interconnected globe is undeniable. Empires fall, legacies endure. Thank you for watching this cinematic documentary. If you want to explore more incredible stories of empires, warriors, and the civilizations that shaped our world, be sure to subscribe to Aurem Tales. We'll see you next time.